Some people become so skilled at hiding their pain that they stop believing anyone will ever notice it. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, the Romano estate felt unusually peaceful as warm sunlight poured through the tall kitchen windows, casting soft reflections across polished marble countertops, while the comforting smell of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies drifted through the house. 8-year-old Lucas Romano laughed as he raced toward the dining table with a glass of orange juice balanced carefully in both hands, determined to prove that he was finally old enough to carry it without anyone's help. Monica Harris smiled from across the room, her calm voice encouraging him to slow down before excitement became an accident. She had only worked for the Romano family for 3 weeks, yet the house already felt different whenever she was there. Lucas smiled more often. He slept through the night without nightmares. Even the staff quietly admitted that the little boy seemed lighter somehow. Vincent Romano noticed everything, although he rarely commented on it. Standing near the windows with a cup of black coffee, the white Mafia Boss reviewed financial reports while silently observing the people around him, a habit developed over decades of making decisions that depended more upon careful attention than unnecessary conversation. Before Monica could reach Lucas, his sneaker caught the edge of a small rug. The glass slipped from his hands and burst harmlessly across the tile floor, sending orange juice splashing over Monica's cardigan. Lucas froze instantly, his face turning pale with guilt. "I am so sorry, Miss Monica," he whispered, his voice trembling as though he expected disappointment. Monica immediately knelt beside him instead of worrying about herself. "Hey," she said gently with a reassuring smile. "Nobody got hurt. That is all that matters." She brushed a few drops of juice from his sleeve before asking him to step away from the broken glass. Her kindness calmed the frightened little boy within seconds. One of the housekeepers hurried over with towels while Monica quietly slipped off her damp cardigan, intending to rinse it before the stain could set. The movement lasted only a moment, but it was long enough. Dark bruises stretched across her upper arm, disappearing beneath the sleeve of her blouse. They were old enough to be fading, yet new enough that they had not completely disappeared. Vincent looked up from the papers in his hands, and for the first time that afternoon, his attention settled completely on one person. Monica realized what had happened almost immediately. Without panic, without a single dramatic gesture, she pulled the cardigan back over her shoulders and adjusted the fabric until every mark disappeared from sight. Her smile returned so naturally that anyone else might have believed nothing unusual had happened. Vincent knew better. Over many years he had learned that people who survived difficult lives often became experts at pretending everything was fine. They smiled first. They apologized when unnecessary. They made themselves smaller so no one would ask uncomfortable questions. Monica did every one of those things within less than 30 seconds. Lucas looked up at her with worried eyes. "Are you sure you are okay?" Monica gently touched the top of his head. "I promise I am." Vincent slowly placed his papers on the kitchen island before walking toward them. His expression remained calm, his voice steady, and there was not a trace of anger anywhere in his face. He waited until Lucas followed the housekeeper to wash the sticky juice from his hands before speaking quietly enough that only Monica could hear. "How long have you been pretending those do not hurt?" For a brief moment, the entire kitchen seemed to fall silent. Monica lowered her eyes, instinctively pulling the sleeves of her cardigan closer around herself. She did not answer. She simply stood there holding the damp fabric against her chest, as though silence had protected her for so long that she no longer remembered any other way to survive. Monica Harris never answered Vincent Romano's question that afternoon. She simply offered a polite smile, thanked the housekeeper for bringing a clean towel, and excused herself to finish preparing Lucas Romano's afternoon snack as though nothing unusual had happened. Vincent watched her walk away without asking another question. Pressing someone who had spent years protecting painful secrets rarely produced honesty. It only taught them to hide more carefully. As the kitchen gradually returned to its normal rhythm, Vincent found himself thinking back to the morning Monica first arrived at the Romano estate nearly 3 weeks earlier. She had not made a dramatic entrance or attempted to impress anyone. Dressed in a simple navy blouse, dark slacks, and comfortable shoes, she carried only a small leather handbag and a neatly organized folder containing her references. Her resume reflected years of childcare experience, excellent recommendations, and a reputation for extraordinary patience. Nothing in her employment history suggested instability, financial trouble, or personal conflict. Even so, Vincent had developed the habit of studying people beyond the words printed on paper. During the interview, Monica answered every question with quiet confidence, never speaking more than necessary and never trying to exaggerate her accomplishments. What caught Vincent's attention was not what she said. It was what she did. Every few minutes her eyes instinctively moved toward the nearest doorway before returning to the conversation. When a delivery truck unexpectedly backed into the driveway outside, the sharp sound caused her shoulders to tense for only a fraction of a second before she regained her composure. Most people would never have noticed. Vincent did. Before he reached any conclusion, the interview room door slowly opened and 8-year-old Lucas wandered inside, carrying a model airplane with one broken wing. He had not intended to interrupt the meeting. He simply wanted someone to help fix the toy his late mother had given him years earlier. Several candidates before Monica had politely redirected him toward another staff member. Monica reacted differently. She lowered herself to one knee so they were eye level and smiled warmly. "May I take a look?" she asked. Lucas quietly handed her the airplane without hesitation, surprising even himself. Monica examined the loose wing for a few moments before reaching into her handbag for a small tube of craft glue she happened to carry for children's art projects. She carefully repaired the damaged piece while explaining to Lucas that sometimes the strongest repairs were the ones made with patience instead of speed. The little boy listened to every word as though he had known her for years. When the glue had dried enough for him to hold the airplane again, Lucas hugged it tightly before looking toward his father. "Can she stay?" he asked softly. Vincent had spent months searching for someone capable of helping his son heal after the loss of his mother. Countless experienced applicants possessed impressive qualifications, yet none had earned Lucas's trust within minutes. Monica had done it without trying. After she accepted the position, Vincent quietly observed her during the following days. She remembered every detail of Lucas's routines, learned the names of every member of the household staff, and treated each person with the same genuine respect regardless of their position. Yet beneath that calm professionalism, Vincent noticed something he could not ignore. Whenever she entered a new room, her eyes briefly located every exit before settling on the people inside. At first he wondered whether it was simply caution. By the end of the third week, he understood it had become instinct. People only learned to study every way out when life had convinced them they might someday need one. The question Vincent Romano had asked in the kitchen remained unanswered, but it refused to leave his thoughts. Monica Harris continued moving through the Romano estate with the same quiet professionalism she had shown since her first day, smiling warmly at Lucas, thanking every member of the staff, and completing each responsibility with calm precision. To anyone else, she appeared perfectly composed. Vincent noticed the details hidden between those ordinary moments. Every afternoon, before driving home, Monica paused beside her car for just a second longer than necessary, casually looking across the driveway before unlocking the door. Whenever an unfamiliar vehicle slowed near the estate gates, her attention shifted toward it almost instinctively before she forced herself to continue walking. During grocery trips with Lucas, she always chose parking spaces close to the store entrance, never because she mentioned convenience, but because they provided the clearest view in every direction. Even inside the estate, where security cameras and trained personnel made danger seem almost impossible, Monica never completely relaxed. One evening, while Lucas worked on a school science project at the dining room table, Vincent quietly observed from the library across the hall. A serving tray slipped from the hands of a young housekeeper, sending several silver utensils clattering across the hardwood floor. The sudden noise startled everyone in the room. Monica reacted differently. Before anyone else even turned their head, she had already stepped between Lucas and the direction of the sound. The movement lasted barely a heartbeat. As soon as she realized there had been no emergency, she smiled apologetically and returned to helping Lucas glue pieces of cardboard together for his volcano model. No one commented on what they had seen. Vincent did not need an explanation. Reflexes like that were not learned from ordinary life. They were learned from living too long with uncertainty. Later that night, after Lucas had gone to bed, Vincent walked into his study where Samuel Carter was already waiting with the following day's security schedule. Samuel had protected the Romano family for nearly 15 years. He was observant, disciplined, and understood the difference between curiosity and intrusion. Vincent closed the office door before speaking. "I need you to look into someone." Samuel remained silent, waiting for more. "Monica Harris." Samuel raised an eyebrow slightly. "Is there a problem?" Vincent slowly shook his head. "Not with her." He looked out through the tall windows toward the quiet gardens illuminated by soft landscape lights. "Something is making her believe she has to live as though every day begins with caution." Samuel nodded once. "What exactly do you want me to find?" Vincent answered without hesitation. "Everything that explains the fear, not everything that judges the woman." The distinction mattered. He was not interested in rumors, gossip, or private mistakes that had nothing to do with her present life. He wanted facts that could explain why someone who made his son feel completely safe had never learned how to feel safe herself. Samuel accepted the assignment with his usual professionalism. "I will keep it discreet." Vincent gave a slight nod. "She is not under suspicion. She is under protection, even if she does not know it yet." As Samuel quietly left the study, Vincent remained standing beside the window for several long moments. Beyond the glass, the estate looked peaceful beneath the evening sky, but he knew appearances often concealed the hardest truths. Monica had mastered the art of making pain invisible. The bruises on her arm had faded beneath the sleeves of her cardigan, but the habits she carried every single day revealed wounds that reached far deeper than anyone could see. Samuel Carter never rushed an investigation because experience had taught him that the smallest details often carried the greatest truth. Over the next 3 days, he quietly reviewed Monica Harris's employment history, financial records available through legal channels, and every professional reference she had listed before joining the Romano household. The results surprised even him. Monica had maintained steady employment for more than 10 years, moving from one respected family to another with exceptional recommendations that consistently described her as dependable, compassionate, and remarkably patient with children. None of her former employers reported conflict, misconduct, or sudden departures. Her finances reflected careful budgeting rather than hardship. Bills were paid on time. There were no unusual debts, no lawsuits, and no indication that she had ever relied on anyone else to support her. Samuel also learned that Monica regularly sent money each month to help her elderly grandmother living in Philadelphia, something she had never mentioned to anyone at the estate. The more he uncovered, the clearer one conclusion became. Monica had spent years quietly taking care of everyone around her while asking almost nothing in return. Yet one name continued appearing during the investigation: Kevin Brooks. He had once shared an apartment with Monica nearly 18 months earlier before the relationship ended. On paper, Kevin appeared almost ordinary. He had maintained consistent employment, possessed no violent criminal convictions, and had never been the subject of any serious public investigation. If Samuel had stopped reading there, the report would have ended without concern. Instead, he continued following the timeline. Small pieces slowly formed a troubling pattern. Shortly after Monica moved into her current apartment, neighbors had occasionally noticed the same dark blue sport utility vehicle parked on nearby streets for long periods, without any obvious reason. The vehicle was registered to Kevin. Security footage collected from businesses near Monica's previous workplace also showed the same vehicle passing through the area with unusual frequency despite Kevin having no documented business there. None of those individual moments violated the law. Together, they suggested something far more unsettling. Kevin rarely approached Monica directly. He simply remained close enough that she would notice him. Samuel expanded the investigation carefully over the following 48 hours. One evening, after Monica finished work at the Romano estate, a surveillance team positioned several blocks away observed the same dark blue vehicle parked across from her apartment building beneath an aging maple tree. Kevin remained inside. He never stepped onto the sidewalk. He never attempted conversation. He simply watched the entrance for nearly 30 minutes before driving away. The report reached Vincent Romano the following morning. Samuel placed a neatly organized folder across the desk before speaking. "She was never hiding from someone unpredictable," he said quietly. "She was living with someone who understood exactly how to stay close without crossing a legal line." Vincent slowly turned each page without interrupting. Photographs, timelines, vehicle registrations, and witness observations all pointed toward the same conclusion. Kevin had built a routine around reminding Monica that he could always be nearby. Vincent finally closed the folder and rested one hand upon it. His expression revealed neither anger nor surprise, only calm certainty. Fear does not always arrive through loud threats, he said. Sometimes it survives through quiet reminders. Samuel nodded. What would you like me to do next? Vincent looked toward the window where Lucas was laughing outside with Monica as they planted flowers beside the garden path. She smiled warmly for the little boy, yet even from a distance, Vincent noticed she glanced briefly toward the estate gates before returning her attention to Lucas. He turned back toward Samuel with quiet resolve. Keep watching, he said. I believe we have only discovered the beginning of her story. Vincent Romano did not need another report to understand what Samuel Carter had already begun to uncover, but experience taught him that assumptions could never replace evidence. Over the next 4 evenings, Samuel quietly expanded the surveillance, while making certain Monica Harris would never realize she was being observed. The goal was not to invade her privacy. It was to understand the pattern that had quietly controlled her life. Every afternoon after leaving the Romano estate, Monica drove home using a slightly different route. Some days she stayed on the main avenue. Other days, she turned through quiet residential streets before eventually returning to the same destination. Once she circled an entire city block before parking outside her apartment building. None of those decisions appeared unusual by themselves. Together, they revealed someone who never believed a familiar route could remain safe for very long. On the 5th evening, one of Samuel's investigators called just after 8 o'clock. The same dark blue sport utility vehicle had returned. It remained parked across the street from Monica's apartment beneath the fading branches of the old maple tree. Kevin Brooks stayed inside with the engine off and the windows partially lowered. He never attempted to approach the building. He never stepped onto the sidewalk. He simply watched. Nearly 20 minutes later, Monica's car entered the street. She slowed for only a moment before pulling into her usual parking space. As she stepped onto the sidewalk carrying 2 grocery bags, her eyes drifted toward the parked vehicle for less than a second. She immediately looked away and continued walking toward the entrance without changing her pace. Anyone else might have believed she had never noticed the vehicle at all. Samuel recognized something different when he reviewed the photographs later that night. The paper grocery bag in Monica's left hand had been squeezed so tightly that the top edge had folded inward beneath her fingers. Her face remained calm, but her hands had quietly revealed the truth she refused to show the world. Kevin waited another 15 minutes before driving away without speaking to her once. Early the next morning, Samuel placed the newest photographs on Vincent's desk. Vincent examined each image in complete silence. One picture showed Monica standing beneath the apartment lights while Kevin's vehicle remained across the street. Another captured her unlocking the front entrance without once looking back again. Finally, Vincent reached the last photograph, one taken after Kevin had already driven away. Monica stood just inside the apartment lobby with one hand resting against the glass door before slowly releasing a breath she had apparently been holding since arriving home. Vincent closed the folder carefully. Did he ever contact her? He asked. Samuel shook his head. No telephone calls. No messages. No confrontation. He only makes certain she knows he could be there. Vincent leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. Then he understands exactly what he is doing. Samuel nodded. He stays just inside the boundaries of the law. Vincent looked through the study windows toward the gardens where Lucas laughed as Monica helped him water newly planted flowers. She smiled every time the little boy splashed too much water onto the grass. Yet Vincent now recognized that the woman who created so much peace for others carried an invisible burden every time she returned home. There are prisons, Vincent said quietly, that are built without walls, locks, or chains. Samuel remained silent. He already understood. Vincent's voice grew even calmer as he continued. She escaped the relationship, but she never escaped the fear. For several long moments, neither man spoke. The photographs remained between them, simple images that revealed nothing dramatic to an untrained eye. To Vincent, they revealed everything. Monica was not living under an immediate threat. She was living inside an invisible prison where every ordinary day reminded her that someone wanted her to keep looking over her shoulder, and Vincent quietly decided that no one who protected his son so faithfully should ever have to carry that weight alone. Vincent Romano made his decision long before anyone else realized one had been made. Years of leading a powerful organization had taught him that the strongest moves were rarely the loudest. They were the ones nobody noticed until the outcome had already become permanent. Late that evening, after Lucas Romano had fallen asleep and Monica Harris had driven home, Vincent asked Samuel Carter to join him in the study. The investigation file remained neatly organized on the mahogany desk, but Vincent did not open it again. He had already seen enough to understand the truth. "Tell me about Kevin Brooks," he said quietly. Samuel answered without emotion. "No felony convictions. No active warrants. Stable employment. No documented incidents that would justify immediate law enforcement intervention. He understands exactly where the legal boundaries are and has remained just inside them." Vincent nodded slowly, which means he expects no one to challenge him. Samuel remained silent. Vincent continued, "Contact Harrison Bennett first thing tonight." Harrison was one of the most respected attorneys in New York, known for resolving sensitive matters with absolute professionalism. "I want every photograph, timeline, witness statement, and documented observation reviewed. If there is a lawful way to establish a pattern of unwanted surveillance, I want it prepared before sunrise." Samuel acknowledged the instruction without writing anything down. Vincent trusted his memory completely. Next, reach out to Daniel Mercer. Daniel had spent more than 2 decades working as a licensed private investigator whose reports regularly supported successful civil proceedings. Every detail collected over the previous week would be organized according to legal standards instead of simple observation. Facts carried far greater weight when they could withstand careful examination. Vincent paused briefly before giving his final instruction. "Arrange a confidential conversation with Captain Robert Hayes tomorrow morning." The veteran police commander had worked alongside Vincent's charitable foundation during several neighborhood safety initiatives over the years. Their relationship remained professional, built upon mutual respect rather than personal favors. "I do not want anyone pressured into filing a complaint," Vincent said. "I simply want the department aware that documented information already exists if Miss Harris ever decides she wants official protection." Samuel finally asked the question he had been considering since entering the room. "Should Monica know any of this?" Vincent slowly shook his head. "Not until she chooses to ask. She has spent too much of her life believing other people would make decisions for her. I will not become another one." The answer reflected everything Samuel respected about the man he had protected for so many years. Vincent was not trying to rescue Monica. He was quietly removing the obstacles preventing her from choosing her own future. Throughout the night, telephone calls connected people in different parts of the city. Harrison Bennett carefully reviewed every document. Daniel Mercer organized photographs into a complete chronological record. Captain Hayes received a confidential briefing regarding a situation that might someday require immediate attention. Shortly before dawn, Kevin Brooks received formal correspondence from Harrison's law office informing him that documented evidence established a consistent pattern of repeated appearances near the residence and workplace of Monica Harris. The letter advised him that any future conduct creating the appearance of continued unwanted surveillance could support immediate legal action through both civil remedies and law enforcement cooperation. The language remained entirely professional. There were no threats, no intimidation, only facts supported by evidence. By sunrise, Kevin understood something he had never expected. Every quiet step he had taken had been noticed by someone far more patient than he was. Later that morning, Monica arrived at the Romano estate exactly as she always did, greeting Lucas with her familiar warm smile, completely unaware that while she had been sleeping, someone had quietly chosen to protect her future without ever asking for recognition. The first sign that something had changed arrived so quietly that Monica Harris almost convinced herself she had imagined it. During breakfast the following morning, while Lucas Romano happily explained why he believed astronauts should bring chocolate chip cookies into space, Monica reached into the pocket of her cardigan to check the time on her cellular telephone. For nearly 2 months, every morning had begun the same way. Unknown numbers appeared on the screen before disappearing without messages. Sometimes there was only one missed call. Other days there were several. She had stopped answering long ago, yet she never stopped expecting them. That morning the screen remained completely empty. No unfamiliar numbers. No silent calls. No reminders that someone wanted her to know he could still reach her. She quietly slipped the telephone back into her pocket without mentioning it to anyone. Throughout the day, she caught herself checking it again and again, almost waiting for the familiar pattern to return. It never did. That evening, after finishing work, Monica drove toward her apartment using the same cautious routine she had followed for months. She changed lanes twice, turned through a different neighborhood, and paused at two separate intersections longer than necessary while watching her mirrors. The dark blue sport utility vehicle never appeared. When she parked outside her building, she remained inside the car for nearly a full minute before slowly looking up and down the street. The old maple tree stood exactly where it always had, but the familiar vehicle was gone. The curb across the street remained empty. Monica carried her groceries upstairs, without once glancing over her shoulder. Only after closing her apartment door did she realize something remarkable. She had climbed every step without listening for footsteps behind her. The quiet continued throughout the week. There were no missed calls, no unexpected sightings, no uneasy feeling that someone was waiting just beyond the next corner. Instead of relief, Monica felt confusion. Fear had shaped so many ordinary decisions that living without it almost felt unfamiliar. Late Friday afternoon, after Lucas had fallen asleep on the living room sofa halfway through his favorite adventure movie, Monica gently covered him with a blanket before walking toward the library, where Vincent Romano stood reviewing several business documents beside the fireplace. He looked up as she entered, immediately noticing the thoughtful expression she had carried all afternoon. "Is something on your mind?" he asked calmly. Monica hesitated before answering. Everything has become quiet. Vincent closed the folder in his hands without interrupting her. She lowered her eyes for a moment before continuing. "The call stopped. The car is gone. Every day, I keep expecting things to go back to the way they were, but nothing happens." She slowly released a breath she seemed to have been holding for years. "I never told anyone because I thought nobody could change it. Kevin understood exactly how to make me afraid without giving me anything I could prove. He never needed to threaten me. He only needed me to know he was somewhere nearby." The room remained silent for several moments. Monica looked toward the fire burning softly inside the stone fireplace. "After a while, I stopped wondering whether I was safe. I only wondered how long the quiet would last." Vincent listened without asking unnecessary questions. When she finally looked back at him, he spoke with the same steady voice that had never once made her feel judged. "No one should have to earn the right to feel safe." Monica felt something inside her begin to loosen, something she had carried for so long that she had almost forgotten what life felt like without it. She still did not understand why everything had suddenly changed, but for the first time in a very long while, she allowed herself to believe that tomorrow might not require fear before it began. The days that followed did not change Monica Harris all at once, because real healing rarely announced its arrival. Instead, it quietly revealed itself through ordinary moments that most people would never think to celebrate. On a bright Saturday morning, Vincent Romano took Lucas to a neighborhood park while Monica accompanied them as she always did. The autumn air carried the scent of fresh grass and maple leaves, and children filled the playground with laughter that echoed across the open field. Lucas ran toward the climbing structure, calling for Monica to watch how high he could go. She smiled and waved, encouraging him with the same patient warmth she brought to every part of his life. Several minutes passed before Monica realized something unusual. She had spent the entire time watching Lucas instead of scanning every parked vehicle surrounding the playground. The discovery caught her completely by surprise. For months, every outing had begun with silent calculations, searching unfamiliar faces, checking reflections in store windows, and wondering whether someone was standing just outside her field of vision. This time she had simply been present. She laughed when Lucas nearly lost his balance before catching himself, applauded as he proudly reached the top of the structure, and only afterward noticed that nearly half an hour had passed without fear interrupting a single thought. Back at the Romano estate, the changes continued quietly. Monica no longer hesitated before answering unfamiliar telephone calls from school administrators or delivery services. She accepted invitations from the kitchen staff to share coffee after lunch instead of politely declining every conversation. One warm afternoon, she arrived wearing a short-sleeved blouse, while helping Lucas prepare for an outdoor science project. The fading bruises that had once hidden beneath her cardigan were finally gone, but what truly mattered was that she no longer felt the need to hide herself from the world. No one mentioned the change. Respect sometimes meant allowing another person to step forward without reminding them of the shadows they had already left behind. Vincent noticed everything, yet he remained silent. Later that week, Lucas came home carrying a folder from school with unmistakable excitement shining across his face. "Dad, you have to read this," he said before placing a handwritten essay into Vincent's hands. The assignment had asked every student to write about the person they admired most. Monica smiled politely, assuming Lucas had chosen his father or perhaps one of his teachers. Vincent slowly read each page before his expression softened almost imperceptibly. He handed the paper to Monica without saying a word. With trembling hands, she began reading aloud. Lucas had written, "Miss Monica always makes people feel safe even when she does not know she is doing it. She fixes broken toys, tells the funniest bedtime stories, and smiles even when she looks tired. She taught me that kind people are the bravest people because they choose to be gentle every day. When I grow up, I hope people feel safe when they are with me too." Monica stopped reading as tears quietly filled her eyes. For years, she had believed fear was the strongest part of her identity. She had never imagined that a little boy saw something entirely different. He had never noticed the woman carrying invisible burdens. He had only seen kindness, patience, and unwavering love. Vincent looked at Monica with calm sincerity before speaking. "Fear convinced you that surviving was your greatest accomplishment," he said quietly. "Lucas reminds you that even while you were surviving, you never stopped giving other people peace." Monica carefully folded the essay against her heart, and for the first time in many years, she understood that healing was not about becoming someone new. It was about finally seeing the remarkable person she had quietly remained all along. 6 months later, the Romano estate carried a different kind of silence. It was no longer the silence of hidden burdens or unanswered fears. It was the peaceful quiet that settled over a home where everyone finally felt safe enough to breathe. Lucas Romano had grown taller. His laughter filled every hallway, and Monica Harris moved through each day with a confidence that had never needed to be loud to be real. She no longer checked every parked vehicle before leaving work. She no longer paused outside her apartment building while preparing herself for another uneasy evening. Instead, she spent her free time attending evening classes in early childhood education and volunteering on weekends at a neighborhood community center that supported families facing difficult transitions. She rarely spoke about her own experiences. She simply listened with patience whenever someone else needed to be heard, because she understood that kindness often began with allowing another person to finish their story. One crisp autumn afternoon, Vincent Romano hosted a charity event at the estate for local children's education programs supported by his foundation. Teachers, neighborhood volunteers, business leaders, and dozens of families gathered beneath rows of white tents while children laughed across the gardens decorated with colorful autumn flowers. Monica coordinated games for the younger children with the same calm warmth that had transformed Lucas's world months earlier. Watching from across the lawn, several guests assumed she had spent years organizing community events because every child naturally drifted toward her gentle encouragement. One elderly teacher quietly approached Vincent and smiled. "Your son is fortunate to have someone like her in his life." Vincent looked across the garden where Monica knelt beside a little girl whose handmade paper kite had torn in half. Instead of replacing it, Monica patiently helped the child repair it, explaining that careful hands could often make something even stronger than it had been before. Vincent smiled almost imperceptibly. "We are all fortunate," he replied. As evening settled over the estate and the final guests prepared to leave, Lucas ran into the library carrying a framed photograph taken earlier that afternoon. The picture showed the three of them standing together beneath the golden maple trees, Lucas smiling between his father and Monica with one hand holding each of theirs. "Can we keep this?" "Here," Lucas asked hopefully. Vincent accepted the frame and looked at it for several quiet moments before placing it on the bookshelf beside treasured family photographs that had remained untouched for years. "Yes," he answered softly. "It belongs here." Lucas hugged Monica tightly before racing upstairs to tell the staff goodnight. After the little boy disappeared, Monica remained standing beside the bookshelf, her eyes resting on the photograph. When I first came here, she said quietly, I believed I had been hired to help one little boy heal. Vincent folded his hands behind his back. And now, Monica smiled with peaceful certainty. Now I think we all found something we thought we had lost. Vincent never told her about the investigation, the attorney, the private investigator, or the quiet conversations that had taken place before sunrise months earlier. Monica never asked. Some acts of protection were never meant to become stories shared aloud. They were meant to become ordinary days that no longer required fear. Outside, the last golden light faded beyond the gardens while the estate settled into another peaceful evening. Monica looked through the tall windows without searching for danger because there was none left to find. She had not been saved by power alone. She had been restored by respect, protected by quiet compassion, and reminded that dignity had never disappeared. It had only been waiting for someone to believe it deserved to come home.